Good morning. My name is Stephen Jackson, and I am conducting my leading video um, this week. The item that I chose, or the activity that I chose, was under the direction of your campus mentor, develop guiding questions to lead a focus group comprised of a broad spectrum of teachers to solicit recommendations for effective and relevant professional developments. Um, Assessing the degree of importance that professional development has in teacher growth, as well as comparing and contrasting the perceived needs uh, from the teachers with the current options offered by the school district, by the district and the school. I'm sorry. So my my mentor, who is our campus principal, and I came up with 7 questions for our focus group, and then I was going to give them some time to kind of open their thinking, push their thinking, and kind of give me some feedback on what they thought was important. Uh, Going into my 11th year of teaching, I've done tons of professional development, um, conducted and been a part of and sat in, and you'll hear my opinion on a lot of the professional developments that we've done. Some that I feel have been very beneficial, some that I feel have been not so beneficial. And my teachers, my peers that I have in my focus group, pretty much echo the same, I'm sure. Um, I interviewed 4 teachers with various years of experience. Coach Willick, who will be going into his 3rd year. Miss Chanel White, who is going into her 5th year. Um, Coach Benway, who is going into his 18th year, and Mr. Thibodeau, who I thought he only was in education 14 years. He's actually been in for 20 years. Um, some of the questions that I'm going to ask, the first question is, how important would you say professional development is in the development of a teacher? I think that's going to be a very important question because some people don't feel that professional development is important. They think that most teachers can come in and should be able to go into the classroom. I don't believe that. I believe especially young teachers need as much professional development as possible. The second question is, if you were a superintendent of a school district, what would be the first professional development that you would require all of your teachers to take? This question is the reason I created this question was because first year and incoming teachers, we tend to give them data first, and I'm to me that is the wrong way to go. But I want to see what my peers feel as well. The third question is, during your teaching career, what would you say has been the most useful professional development that you've been a part of, and what made that PD so effective or lasting in your mind? Um, my fourth question is, what are the components of an effective professional development? This is a question that I'm going to really listen for because I feel it's when I become an assistant principal or principal, I want to know what stands out in their minds as effective, and what keeps them engaged and on task in professional developments, and what allows them to take back pieces of that professional development and use in their classroom. Um, should the professional development required of a campus be determined by the demographics? So often we get professional developments that aren't geared to the kids that we service, and I think that plays a big part. So that question should be very important. What percentage of professional development should be based on teacher interest versus teacher need? Uh, this question is what I felt was going to push their thinking, because so often we feel as if we know what we need, and we don't always. But a teacher interest can actually push them to thinking outside of the box in their course or in their content. And then last, do you feel that peer-led professional developments are more successful or beneficial than those led by administration or outside agencies? And this is important because just like with the kids, I feel like we learn more from one another than we do from, higher ups. So I think that, my peers will echo the same in this focus group, because we enjoy hearing the from the vantage point of people who are, so, for lack of a better term, boots on the ground. than rather than those that are above us. So let's go ahead and get it started. Not at all. All right, so today we are here. I brought 4 of my colleagues, one on the way, that will be participating in a focus group on professional development. I have Ms. White, who has 5 years of teaching experience. I have Coach Willick, who has 3 years of teaching experience. Coach Benway, who is our veteran, who has 18 years of teacher experience, and Coach Thibodeau, who is on his way with 14 years of teaching experience. The goal for today is pretty much to figure out what's important when it comes to professional development. What ways can we improve PDs? What can we take away? What do we feel is useful? What do we feel is obsolete, I guess, or that we can just get rid of? And again, none of this is going to be shown to anyone but us and then, my professor. So whatever you discuss with me will stay between us. Okay. So the first question would be, how important would you say professional development is in the development of a teacher?
I'll go ahead and start. I think it's important to the development of a teacher because it gives you an opportunity to get new ideas, interact with your colleagues in professional development, and exchange ideas. Personally, the biggest professional development I ever had was doing student teaching, and I don't know how much that is done anymore, but it was something I did, and being a student teacher is going to be better than any kind of 1 hour, 3-4 hour course that you can ever, that you could ever get. So, to me, the professional development is going to be beneficial, but nothing can ever take the place of actually getting in and being a student teacher with the teacher of record, helping shadow you and help you along the way after you observe for a few weeks under her or him, and you get ease your way into being in a leadership role, and then eventually she, the teacher of record, will let you have it, and she's going to sit back and assist you. That is better than any professional development that I've ever been to.
I agree. I'm gonna piggyback on what Coach said. I think the shadowing experience that gives you, whether you're a student teacher or for me, my biggest PD I think that I've experienced is the mentor-mentee that some districts have. So as a first-year teacher, I was put into that program, and I think it followed me for like the first 3 years in that district. But it gave me an opportunity to have that person all year long, that I could go in during whatever period, watch them kind of, do the curriculum and the instruction the way that the district was asking us to do. I mean, because again, I had my style of teaching, but when there's this criteria on what needs to happen in the classroom, you need to see that model, continuously throughout their first year. So that really helped me. And then even my second and third year, having the opportunity to go and have that person to talk to about those struggling areas that I was experiencing as a teacher, and for them to give me the feedback that I needed, I think, it was worth it. It developed me, all around as, a great teacher, so.
Yeah, I would add on to that. I'm a product of an alt-cert program, so I did a summer program over the summer, or short 3-week program over the summer.
Same.
Did a quick teach to a bunch of adults, which is completely different than teaching students.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a mentor-mentee for my first year. But one thing that I think would be beneficial to first-year teachers, like especially developing them, you should have to go see 3 or 4 different teachers that teach different subjects throughout the year. Like, your administration needs to schedule that in your schedule. Like, hey, plan to have a sub for this teacher that's new to go see different teaching techniques, different classroom management techniques, because a lot of first-year teachers get out the game because of classroom management and not necessarily knowing what to do in a classroom.
Right.
Well, the more people you view in doing things correctly or even incorrectly, as you learn a lot from people's mistakes too, is going to help you grow as a teacher. So, and I think first 3 years, you should be in other people's classrooms seeing what they do.
Continuously, like.
Because I learn from my peers. I learn from teachers that do things.
Yeah. Coach Thibodeau will tell you, that's one of my phrases. I'm always, no matter where I am, I'm gonna learn what to do and what not to do.
Right.
I'm gonna take
Yeah.
bits and pieces from both, and I'm
That's
gonna
smart.
realize that. So
That's smart.
yeah, Coach Thibodeau can attest to that. I say that all the time.
I agree with you guys on the professional development being coming from your peers. I think it's paramount that in order for a teacher to grow, you have to have not only just with strategies, but how to, conduct your class, and not only from district level, you can go to conferences and learn something.
Yeah, for sure.
And it may not be, everything that applies to you, but you can grab a little something from any presentation that's related to what your interest is and take it back, and it may work for you.
Right.
I've always, since I've been teaching, and this will be year 20 for me, always gone and teaching PE, there's TAFER. I've always gone to TAFER. Nobody pays for it for me. I just take it upon myself to invest in my professional growth.
That's awesome.
So, I'm always going to TAFER. Coaching school, the same deal with being a coach. You can always get the things from these great people who present. And I think it's very important to have on a consistent basis, not just at the beginning of the year, but throughout the year, throughout your whole career.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd add on to that, if, say, a district does have a professional development plan, sometimes you lose sight of it, but can, just have a professional development plan, what we wanna work on for the whole year, and come back to it, grow on that.
Stick to that, yeah.
Stick to that. Don't, hey, we wanna try this, let's do a new thing.
Yeah.
Stick to this one thing and try to develop it and let it grow.
Yeah.
And that's what I would want to be assessed on, is this being implemented, what we're trying to see in our classroom over the year.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and you all gave great answers. What I want to do is, since most of y'all touched on it, we're gonna, question 7 is, do you feel that peer-led professional developments are more successful or beneficial than those led by administration or outside agencies? So,
I think it's 50-50.
mm,
You hit on it earlier about teachers sharing with other teachers. From a teacher standpoint, when you have a peer to present to you, that it makes it that you're closer to it, because, okay, this person is coming from where I'm coming from, versus administration or somebody from outside. You're like, nah, they don't know how it is.
You're right.
At our level.
Yeah.
So coming from a peer, I think teachers will trust it a little bit more or buy more into it because it's coming from one of us or
Yeah.
one of them. That's my take on that.
yeah.
I agree. I think that sometimes administrators get where they want to show you how they want it to be done, but yet they're not in the classroom. And whenever I'm with a teacher or someone that's in my shoes, that I can understand the problems that can be, the problems that come about in the classroom. They actually, now, it's kind of like the old saying, you hear about, you want to talk to somebody that's been in the fire. Well, when someone's talking to me that's been in that fire, now that means a whole lot to me
I agree.
than somebody, and that's not knocking administrators, but the bottom line is that, if I'm working with somebody that's in that classroom, now, guess what? I feel like we're on the same level.
Right.
And if they can do it a certain way, now I can actually say, hey, if they're doing it, I can do that, instead of something coming out of a book, from some professor that, he might not be, he might have wrote this thing and on a campus that is way different than ours.
I agree. And I was on the leadership side, I believe that, I think it's okay when it's coming from the administration or outside agency, as long as it's supported. Everybody can come in and teach you how to do something, and then you never hear about it again, or that person doesn't check in or, do his own study, because like Coach was saying, every school is different. So yeah, you've seen it maybe work on this one campus where you did the study for your book or for whatever it is, but to actually have someone come in, spend time on your campus, kind of see what needs need to be met, and then to come in and, you know, and they know the teachers and they connect with teachers and stay in contact to make sure the program is working or the strategy. I think that's where Coach said it's 50-50. I think that's when it can work. But if, you know, if you come in one day, you do an hour presentation, and the principal's like, all right, guys, this is what we're gonna do. The administrator's like, this is what we're gonna do, but we never hear about it again, or when that situation arises and we're not putting that into use, then it's kind of like, all right, we're back to, you know, the beginning on it. So, I mean, it's, you know, we have to have the support behind it when it's coming from the outside agencies or the administration, for sure.
So, okay, with that being said, if you were the superintendent of your own school district, what would be the first professional development that you would require your teachers to take? And that can be first-year teachers or veteran teachers, anywhere in between. What would you say is the most important PD that they would need to take right off the top?
I would say, I'm gonna go ahead and chime in on this one. I would say something about self-care, because you are no good to these students, your coworkers, the district, you know, anybody, your peers, if you don't take care of yourself first. You know, it's like running on E. You're trying to gas everybody else up. You know, you gotta be on full before you come in the classroom, before you get on that field, before you start doing what you do. So I definitely think it would be something that's like self-awareness, type of self-care PD, to make sure that everybody's on that same level of, you know,
I like that.
with themselves.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but that would be a huge professional development, because people, like, come January, they're on E, and they're
You know
burnt
what I'm
out,
saying?
and they're like,
Seriously.
they're not eating well, they're not sleeping well, they're stressed. It's like, you need some sort of structure or organization, because you have to be organized to be good at teaching.
Oh, yeah.
You can't do things last second and it's just gonna add to the stress.
Yeah.
So some sort of development to teach people how to organize, how to plan, how to have your lesson plans, how to have your grading, how to stay on top of it would be hugely
Yeah.
beneficial, especially to new teachers.
How to just take care of yourself. I mean, we're real people. We
Yeah.
have lives outside of this school. We're human. So, you know, we come in, this job is very demanding on whatever level it is. And so you have to take care of yourself. You know, you can't, you have your outside things, but then you have work, and then when you get here, we need that 100%, you know, but you gotta take care of that in order to give that in the classroom daily, so.
I like that. Good.
If I was a superintendent of a district, along with that, because that's very important, you have to be 100%, that's what we're doing. But, the way Texas is like a melting pot, I'll just go from there. You have so many different students from so many backgrounds. You may think, you know, one Hispanic student is just like the other, but they can be from totally different parts of Mexico or, you know, Nicaragua or somewhere. So my first professional development would be for culturally responsive teaching. Being able to get to understand the background and know your students, where they came from, their way of life, their culture, because that will at some point affect what's going on in the classroom with them and with you. I would also, you know, have the teachers be trained on, you know, and that goes along with teaching diverse students, you know, a diverse population, just being able to learn about and celebrate the differences in your class to make it a family type of environment. You want an environment that's conducive to learning, and you don't want anybody to feel left out. So including them in that and training teachers on that, I would do that first, and also classroom management. But that comes into how the relationship is with you and your students. That's the teacher's responsibility. But, you know, some teachers may be weaker in that area. So professional development and classroom management would be number 2 or number 3 on my
That's
list.
important, for sure.
And I think those go hand in hand, but like you said, if you don't form a relationship with that kid, your classroom management is gonna always be terrible.
And that's
because you can't learn from somebody you don't like or respect. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And more often than not, you know, kids will give you a hard time because they know you don't care, because you don't show up to extracurricular activities, because you don't show a vested interest in what they like outside of just Spanish or math or science. If all you worried about with them is what you can teach them as far as your content goes, you never gonna have classroom management skills. because they're gonna always push back. You know, I would.
I always found the time to teach. I call it a life lesson. You know, I would get on the soapbox sometime in my classes, but it's because I felt the need. The kids needed to hear it from me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, beyond PE, beyond the classroom, this is what's going to happen in life.
Yeah.
What you're doing now is prepping you to be able to endure whatever obstacles come in your way. But you got to learn now that your school is your foundation. I try to get that across to them.
And I think that would be a big part of PDs too. You know, teaching teachers, that's funny, teaching teachers how to allow yourself to be vulnerable. Like if you can't be transparent and vulnerable, the kids aren't going to ever really be able to relate because they're gonna always see you as a fake something, like you just standing up there teaching. And that's why when kids see you in the grocery store, they like, you eat groceries? Like, because you really don't understand that you're a real human being.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? But if you never allow them to see that side, then I think that should be a big PD that all teachers, that would be my first. Because similar to what y'all both saying, like they gotta know we're human too. And in order to avoid that whole classroom management issue, let them see who you are. And then they'll respect that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's a big part.
I agree.
All right, so during your teaching career, what would you say has been the most powerful or useful professional development that you have been a part of, and what made that PD more effective or lasting to you?
I just got done with one. It was awesome. I went through Dallas ISD's social studies curriculum over at Townview, and it kind of hit some of these things we're talking about. It was peer-led, it was teacher-led from Dallas ISD teachers that they sought out and were like, hey, you've been part of writing the curriculum, you've been a top-tier teacher, you've been doing this for multiple years, a veteran teacher. And then I was in a classroom with about 20 different social studies teachers from different campuses, and it was very collaborative. And I learned stuff from the PD that they had laid out for us. I learned more from my peers.
Yeah.
Hey, you have the same struggles I do. I'm not alone on an island. These are techniques that you use in your classroom I can take back because we have similar students, you know, our demographics may not be exactly the same, but we all have ELL students, right? Like what are you using in your classroom to get your kids to think, to be better at reading? What are some strategies your campus rolls out? What have you used in this classroom management techniques? How have you made your students collaborative and it was successful?
Yeah.
What didn't work? And it was just being so.
All right. So we probably pretty much touched on all these components, but what are some of the components of an effective professional development? Like what in PDs have you experienced that you say, okay, you know what, this makes a professional development effective? Like this is something that all PDs need to have in order for teachers to grow and be successful. What are those components?
A great instructor. Great instructor that's confident, that has a structured plan. Last thing I want to do is walk into a professional development that's last second where they're reading me the PowerPoint slide because they didn't prepare. Just like you're going to give a lesson in a classroom, you can tell if the teacher's not prepared.
Exactly.
You need a prepared professional development, not last second. It needs to be collaborative. You have to collaborate. Like we all said, you don't just want to sit there and just be talked to the whole time. You need to be doing something.
I can't stand going to professional development and sitting, listening to people that don't want to be there. You know, the thing is, you know, you could better have some energy about you.
Yeah, true. Have some energy.
You better, you know, if I'm gonna spend half my day or all my day with you, let's make it worthwhile. And, you know, I want people that are going to be energetic, okay, do some, you know, hey, have a few things that are attention getters and get people involved and you know, don't put me in a desk and make me feel like I'm back in high school with, you know, with the teacher that's on his way out and drawing a paycheck, you know. I want to be able to gain something from this as well. So, you know, it's important that we've got to be able to have somebody that actually wants to be there as well.
Yeah.
You know, that's my big deal.
I agree.
Topic needs to be something that I can relate to. Like you said, structure, organize, a good presenter. participant, wow, like just ready to take what I've learned
Yeah.
and go apply it right away.
Yeah.
Should PDs,
So every time it's
oh,
staff.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Should PDs always be data driven?
I think data is important on anything because that's just showing the whoever that these are the facts. This is what we got from that. Should it be data driven if it's within the content? I guess you can say. Okay. Everything doesn't have to be data driven, but data drives pretty much a lot of the educational realm.
Yeah.
From test scores to the number of discipline referrals, maybe it is. So, I mean, all that's information, all that's data.
Yeah.
You just use it where needed.
And I guess I ask because data is the buzzword now in education, and everything is data this and data
Based
that.
on, yeah.
And do we? And I ask myself, do we sometimes overuse or over? And I guess I'll say overuse
Right.
that word, and then lose sight of what education should and could really be about, based off of just using numbers to guide where we go.
And I'm gonna piggyback on that because as an elective teacher, this is my first year as an admin coordinator, but I've been doing college and career for the last 5 years. So data to me was like, what the heck, in every meeting, I'm like, man, I'm literally, I'm changing lives every day. My kids love me. I'm watching my kids be successful, and I haven't used data since. Like, I want somebody to give me the data behind my percentile on how many kids graduate and do all of that, but everything is so core focused. So to me, data and PDs are like, what? Like I think yesterday, I was sitting there and I made some pretty good, I guess, grows and glows about data, but I'm still confused. I'm like, okay, how does this really affect me? Or where am I needed? Where am I needed as an elective teacher? How can I collaborate? How can I use that data and add it, to help you guys out? And I guess that's the part that I think I've never really been in a PD about data. Teach me what data is first before you use it in every other PD that you guys have. Like, and I think sometimes as the elective teacher, that's kind of over, everybody like, well, we're not really asking y'all, we're really looking at the content teachers, but I'm a teacher, trust me. I need to understand it as, wholly before I'm like putting PDs where that's the basis of every PD that I'm in, that's driven by, so.
Yeah, and
I
I
don't
just
know.
think that happens all the time because
Yeah.
anytime you go into a PD and the first thing they say is well, this is what the data shows and this is what the data shows. But then I think I start to disconnect because again, like I mean, the data does not always speak to student success. It's really just a number on the paper, in my opinion. But again,
Some of those numbers are important.
some of them are
They
important.
are,
Definitely.
because it's like, teach me the.
You always hear numbers don't lie. Well, there is a whole lot of, and I
Gray
don't,
area in there.
I don't wanna,
Manipulative.
I don't wanna compare everything to athletics, but, you really can't compare, an SEC football with the Big 12 football, because Big 12's gonna run 100 plays a game, maybe compared to
Right.
the SEC 60, and how much better is, you can't compare, I'm sorry, you can't compare some districts to other districts. Some schools that have lower test scores have got the best teachers in the state.
Yeah.
Okay, well, a lot of it has to do where the kid's coming from, where, do we have kids raising kids? Do we have kids sitting down with mom and dad every night having a family meal? I mean,
Yeah,
numbers.
a lot behind the scenes
There's
going
some
on.
Objectiveness to that
Yes, so,
objective data.
so,
Exactly.
you cannot always go by data. It's, you can base some things and get a starting point, but once you start researching,
You gotta
you'll
start
find out
pulling
real
apart.
quick that
Yeah.
things can be,
I
there's a
think
lot
that-
of factors that go into things like with data.
When you look at the data, you gotta be able to, okay, here's the data, say, Seagoville, for instance, we didn't have the greatest reading scores. Dallas ISD didn't have great reading scores, okay. Now we got pulled apart, what are the subjective reasons why we don't have good reading scores, and that's what your PD should be based on.
Yeah.
Those
agree.
reasons.
And I think in order to do that though, those who are conducting PDs and rolling out the PD have to be in the trenches. Like you cannot speak to that and if you've never seen it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times PDs get lost in those people downtown and or detached from the reality. So then they put on PDs to things that we really don't need, you know. And it's like teach me how to teach a kid.
Don't bring me in here somebody from Highland Park telling me how to run my Siggaville students.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, because you don't know anything.
You've never seen it.
Yes.
This is foreign to you. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? It's like
Exactly.
so, and that will take a hit in the PDs that we offer because if you're giving me a PD that a Highland Park teacher can benefit from, well, me, I'm gonna look at that like I just wasted 2 hours because that gets me nowhere.
Right.
Yeah, and we're almost done. I appreciate you all taking the time. I know y'all got meetings to go to. The fifth question: should the professional development required of a campus be determined by the demographics of the campus, similar to what we were just talking about?
Yes.
And
It sure does help.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, because that's where it will be most effective.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you are seeing whatever needs, you are serving whoever your kids are, you know, based on that. So, yes, it should be required to, I mean, it should be determined by the demographics of the campus. But in general, like the institute, you know, if it's not, and you have that opportunity, and you take from that professional development, what you learn that can be applied to your demographics.
Yeah.
It may not be the whole thing is useful to you, maybe just one or two things.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think those one or two things, if they're effective and you use them and implement them how you're supposed to and they work, then it was all work.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. What percentage or what amount of professional developments during the year should be based on just teacher interest versus teacher need? Like, for instance, like if Ms. White is really interested in teaching college applications and FAFSA, should she be allowed to do that more as opposed to like teaching reading and writing skills or teaching, you know, and you're not a math teacher, but you know, say a math, some type of curriculum. Should she be allowed to do more of what she's interested in teaching the kids versus what she probably, I'm not gonna say need, because that need makes it seem like it should be mandatory, but
Right.
as opposed to what she may need to use.
Right. Well, I would say a very high percentage should be more teacher interest because again, it's my professional development. I don't think anybody's like where they want to be until they retire, you know, and so we're talking about the growth mindset, then, you know, I think that's the one thing I've always wanted was to be able, someone to ask me or have the ability to be like, hey, like Coach said earlier, he takes it upon himself to put himself in his own professional development because I mean, he's taking control of, you know, his career and what he's doing. And so for me, you know, I guess I could do what Coach, you know, is doing, like go ahead and go to summer institutes, you know, or college and career preparation, you know, PDs during the summer. But I think it would be cool if the district was like, hey, Ms. White, check out Region 10 and we're gonna pay for you to go to a few over that you're interested in. And then, you know, I go and then I'm also be able to bring that back to the classroom, but I'm also being, you know, grow myself as a teacher throughout the year. But yeah, so I would say.
I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's 50-50 just because, and our district has provided us with that. I mean, that doesn't mean you're wrong.
Right.
That's just your view on it.
Okay.
But I think it's 50-50 because the teacher needs are very important. You know, this is what you must do. And then your wants or your desires or, you know, that's just as important, but I think it's just balanced 50-50 because the things that they provided for the Summer Institute, some were concrete, like the power schools, you had to go to that because it was something that you needed to learn.
Right.
Versus, okay, culturally responsive teaching course or some SEL strategy presentation or something like that. It could be something you want. I think it's still a need because it will help you with the relationship with your students. It'll give you the tools that you can use to make your classroom atmosphere more productive. But I'll stick with 50-50.
And I'd agree just solely because not every teacher is going to take that subjective look at what they need. Maybe need an outside person to say, hey, as a district or as a school, we're not doing well in this.
Yeah.
So y'all need the professional development and how this works. Regardless of how you think you're doing, going back to data, the numbers don't lie. We're not good at this. But now we need to look back at what is it we need to do to fix this data subjectively, and what type of PD do we need to bring in. You got to find the balance, because I also have a vested interest in my professional development. I went to a coaching clinic over the summer, paid a lot of money for it. I learned a ton about coaching kids in soccer that I could use in my economics class. I had an administrator teaching it,
Yeah.
and I found out he has a license for U.S. Soccer. He's a principal, an elementary principal, and the way he ran his class, so he did our social contract. I was like, dude, I'm bringing that into my classroom.
Yeah.
It's a coaching class. It's not meant for high school students, but I was like, you had a bunch of adults that thought they knew everything bought in. I know teenagers will buy in.
Yeah.
Right.
So you never know where that's at, but I had to have a vested interest to do that. But taking an administration look, sometimes you need to implement PDs that your teachers are need if they're not, doing well in a certain area.
Yeah.
Because I think they get some information from that from the climate survey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we notice on the climate survey that our teachers feel this way or they don't feel supported, then we need to provide something for them so where we are supporting them. So just go back to
And I think it was huge how you used a PD on soccer in your history or your social studies classroom. Like that crossover is huge because people don't understand, like, you can learn so much in a PE, professional development, that you can use in math or science. But we get so fixated on, oh, he's a science teacher, send him to a science PD. Well, that ain't always gonna be beneficial.
so
Like,
true.
and I think
so
that's
true.
important in how we intertwine, I guess, curriculum. Like, we want more writing in math, but we don't send math teachers to an English PD.
But they
you
go-
know, and
right.
things such as that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. Well, again, it was him, but then again, it was him following, going to something that he was interested in.
Yeah.
Where he
Yeah.
where he took what he was learning and able to like satisfy that need of what you would need in your classroom. Like, something you use in the classroom. So, and that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Like, but now I'm agreeing with the coaches. It is 50-50 because, I think about it like, the power school, all this stuff I need, especially switching district, you're new to a district, everybody runs their districts different. So there are certain things you need to know.
I didn't mean to change your mind, but that was
You
just.
didn't change my
I'm
mind,
just sharing
but
my
I
view.
agree, I
All right,
agree.
so my
I agree.
last question, and I'm gonna let you go. In our district, we have a mandatory amount of hours that we must have every year, every summer. What would you say? Yeah, what would you say is a respectful number that you would recommend if you had your own district? How many PD hours would you recommend or require your teachers to do per year? And you can give me a number, and then you can justify that number. Why do you feel that number is necessary?
I say 15 and 20. That's close to what they require. I guess a wish would be to not even require it, just to see how many teachers would get it.
Okay.
But I think the numbers would be very low
Yeah.
if you did that. And because people are just like the kids sometimes, they're lazy, they don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
But if they have the growth mindset, I think you have, it'll be less. I maybe see like maybe 40%
Yeah.
of your teachers probably will go ahead and do it themselves.
Yeah.
Some have to do it because if you're on a 5-year renewable teacher contract,
Mhm.
you have to have a certain amount of hours before that you report before you can get your contract extended for another 5 years. So it's necessary, and that's what I've always been happy about, is that the districts do require a certain amount. Because I get that and I tie it into, every 5 years when my certification renewal comes up,
Yeah.
I can already document, I have certificates and everything for that to report the amount of hours.
Yeah.
But I'll say 15 to 20 hours I would require, and they could change, because just you got to look at what the needs are too.
And see, I guess I would be different in that I would probably require 30 hours, but I would also allocate funds to pay for my teachers to go different places and get those trainings.
That's key.
Because when I went to an Abbott Institute in Orlando, I learned way different than what I did when I went to Summer Institute in Texas. And that's just because they taught differently, had different demographics, they had different kids, different resources, and I was able to take some of that and say, okay, well, you know what, that actually makes more sense. But when we just focus our attention solely on where we are, and that's all we offer to our teachers, then I would make that number more like 12, because you start to hear the same thing. Like, if I go to the same PD 3 years in a row, what have I learned? I've just gone to the same thing to say I didn't. You know, so I would lower the number if I couldn't raise the area that we go to, if that makes sense. But our time has come to an end. I appreciate you all taking the time. I know it was, you all have, like I said, busy schedules, but thank you again, and get y'all around.
No problem.
Appreciate you. Anything else?
So after conducting our focus group on yesterday, I came away with pretty much what I expected to hear from my teachers and my peers on their thoughts on professional developments and ways that they can be improved. One thing that was kind of shocking was the teachers, a couple of them said that student teaching provided them with more feedback and better information to be an effective teacher than professional developments does. And I understood where they were coming from, because hands-on experience is the best teacher. It's easier to gain great insight and ideas from getting hands-on experience, as opposed to someone just standing up kind of telling you what it should look like, how you should do it. Mentor and mentee programs was another great idea that was pushed to kind of not offset the amount of PDs, but to kind of get a better growth mindset when it came to growing teachers. The PD that was offered up, that a couple teachers said that they would like for first year teachers to get, was a self-awareness professional development. And that blew me away, because you don't think about how teachers can get beat down and worn out and not take care of themselves, which could lead to ineffective teaching. I think that's a great idea, thought process when it came to the type of professional development that you would want a first year teacher to have. Diversity, and kind of pushing the narrative of culturally responsive teaching, allowing those PDs to be geared towards the demographics and the students that you teach. A lot of times we get professional developments that we are hearing in a perfect world situation. Well, a lot of times in the inner city, that doesn't benefit the teachers and the students that they are teaching. So using PDs to get a diverse amount of PDs that will fit all types of classrooms and all types of students. Classroom management, professional developments was another big one. Teachers don't often get good classroom management skill training, and those types of PDs would be very beneficial as well. The things that they said stood out and kind of resonated in their mind and allowed them to use strategies that they learned in PDs were, for one, a great instructor, high energy, positive, well prepared, that allows for them to be collaborative with their peers and collaborate and grow together. Some of the better PDs that I've been to have been just that, those that allow me to network and collaborate with my peers, those who are in the same boat that I'm in. It's teaching every day in the classroom. Those PDs were a lot better than those that were, it was a traditional sit and get atmosphere. When it came to data in our focus group, we all understood how important data is to our learning, or to our teaching and our student learning, but we don't want data to be the sole focus on professional developments. I think we get lost in in the numbers, and we forget about growing the whole student socially, emotionally, and as well educationally, and teaching them. So professional development should also be geared towards those other key components to building the entire child. And then when it came to the types of professional developments, those that we felt were need versus interest, that intrinsic motivation, I feel, will lead you to getting teachers to be able to touch both the need and the interest. If those teachers are intrinsically motivated, they'll know that they need to go to certain PDs, and that will make them a better teacher, content-wise, but they'll also continue to show interest in the profession and will stick around longer. The last thing that I found, or one of the last questions that I kind of added to the focus group was recommended PD hours per year. And in the district that we're in, we have to have, I believe, 18 professional development hours throughout the course of the year. And I feel like that's a good number, between 15 to 20, and then allow teachers to add more hours that they in their interest levels, because if you're not learning, you're not growing. And in order to be our best selves for our students, we should put our foot forward in gaining more PD hours than are required. We should want to go out and get that extra training. So all in all, I feel like we had a pretty successful focus group. We all walked away with a better understanding of how important professional developments are, and that's it.